Hello, it is Admiral Sara here for Admiral Sara's Chronicles. Today we are talking about the Temporal Prime Directive. So spoiler alerts ahead of time, since I rarely remember to say that. We are talking about Star Trek Voyager, season 3 episodes, I think 8 and 9, and then season 5, episode 23. So season 3, episodes 8 and 9 is Future's End. And then season 5, episode 23 is Relativity. What do these two have in common? This is when we're talking about Captain Braxton. And these are the two, or the, I suppose, 3 episodes. I actually think he was only in the first part of Future's End, but I'm going to do both episodes anyway, because it was a 2-parter. And then we see him again in season 5, episode 23 in Relativity, which is a 29th century time travel ship. So what happens in Future's End? Well, we have Captain Braxton has crashed on Earth in LA, which I think it's hilarious that Tuvok calls it Los Angeles. I feel like if he had any sort of like language translator, that he would have called it Los Angeles. I'm sorry, my Spanish pronunciation is bad, but I feel like he wouldn't have, I feel like he would have softened the G. Anyway, so Captain Braxton crash lands on Earth in 1967. We catch up with him at 1996, where he has become a homeless person in LA. And I think, is his name Henry Starling? We'll go with Starling for conversation. Has stolen 29th century technology and has kind of created the computer boom, the computer age, the computer boom of the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So what we know as the late 20th century computer boom was Henry Starling. So Starling has stolen technology from the 29th century in order to advance the computer age in the late 20th century Earth. And what he's wanting to do is now take the ship that he has stolen from Captain Braxton and back to the 29th century to get more technology. So this is basically a money-hungry, power-hungry asshole who's wanting to use time travel for the greater good of himself, although he's disguising that as the greater good of humanity, right? Where have we seen that before? Like all over the fucking place, right? And then at the end of the second part of Future's End, we see Captain Braxton, but he is unfamiliar with this whole timeline that we've just experienced on the last 2 episodes. So how are these two sets of episodes linked? Well, the Captain Braxton that crash landed on Earth in 1967 is now holding a grudge against Janeway and Voyager in the 29th century on Relativity, and he has planted a weapon, a temporal, what is it, like a temporal phasic weapon on Voyager in order to destroy Voyager. So 7 of 9 is sent back and forth through time to destroy the weapon that the Captain Braxton that has a grudge against Janeway has left on Voyager. The reason that 7 of 9 was chosen is because her ocular cortex or her ocular implants are able to see the time phase or the time phasic weapon that Braxton has planted on the ship. So by the end of Relativity, we end up with several 7 of 9s and several Captain Braxtons, and then Janeway has to go clean up the timeline and capture the original Braxton who attempted to plant the weapon on Voyager. So there's a lot of time fuckery here. There's a lot of Back to the Future vibes, wherein Braxton's attempt to destroy Voyager is similar to, or I should say, let me change that story just a bit. Starling is almost like Biff from the future, the 2015 in Back to the Future 2, where old Biff takes the almanac back to 1955 to give to young Biff. And then when Doc and Marty go back to 1985, it's this alternate reality of, Biff is rich and powerful kind of thing. That's the vibe I get with this whole Starling creature going and stealing technology to give himself more power over the technology boom of the late 20th century. So there's also like Nikola Tesla vibes here. Supposedly Nikola Tesla, and I haven't researched this in a hot minute, so I apologize about the whole Nikola Tesla thing, but I'm pretty sure he had created time travel and whatnot. And of course, we have the temporal prime directive, wherein, like, here we have Janeway, Chakotay, Tuvok, and Paris in late 20th century Los Angeles, trying to be in disguise. But of course, Tuvok's ears, his Vulcan ears, and whatnot. But the cool thing about this episode is this is where the Doctor gets his mobile emitter. So he's able to travel all over the ship as opposed to just being in sickbay. So there's a lot of things that happen between these two episodes. And so here's what I want to say to that. Like, remember that the Captain Braxton that we see at the end of Future's End doesn't even have a clue that this timeline exists, right? And this other Captain Braxton, who is shipwrecked, continues to carry a grudge, that which we see the result of 2 seasons later in Relativity. So it's kind of fun if you think about it. Like, what if there's like different, and I've thought about this when I was writing my fictional narrative. Like, I could totally write a choose your own adventure. Like, what if my character in my fictional narrative didn't choose to do healing work and she still landed in abusive relationship after abusive relationship? And like, what parts of that did she finally choose to heal or not heal, or whatever? Like, think about that with your own healing work. What would have happened if you'd chosen to not be sober? How would your life be different? What would have happened if you had said no to, the transformation coaching opportunities presented to you? How would life have been different? How would you have been different? Would you have continued to be angry at your, life, as it were? Would you hold a grudge against somebody to the point of wanting to, destroy an entire ship? And that Captain Braxton wanted to destroy all of Voyager. So yeah, there's a lot going on with these 2 episodes, between the 2 of them, but and I think there's a lot that we can think about as far as choosing our own adventure, and that, similar to parallels that we saw with Worf jumping between parallel universes, everything that is possible does happen, right? Every outcome is a reality. It's a matter of, are you tuned into its temporal phase or not, or its temporal frequency, right? Because the way we change our reality is changing our frequency. And the higher our frequency, the more our reality changes. But is it possible that somewhere in the mess of timelines that there's a version of you that has a lower frequency, that's still in that low vibration and is still living that wounded life, that hated life? Is there still a part, some part of you somewhere that's still living, the life of intoxication and still victimizing themselves to whatever? So there's just lots of different things that we can think about when we talk about multiple timelines and multiple versions of ourselves. I always think, like, if you had told me 5 years ago that I'd be doing this, like, YouTube, and this dedicated to it, I don't know if I would have written the second book. but I'm in the process of it now. If you'd have told me 5 years ago that I'd be living back in my hometown, I probably would have laughed at you. It was definitely not on my agenda. So anyway, lots of different things to think about with temporal play when we're playing with timelines, when we're playing with parallel universes. It's one of my favorite topics because, there's always that parallel to us that's a whole different timeline than we've created for ourselves. So keep in mind when you are doing your work, whether it's astrology, personal development, choosing sobriety, choosing to clean up your diet and exercise, choosing, whatever you're choosing, think about the different versions of you that can and do exist based on your choices, and that you get to co-create with God Source Universe as to which one you want to consciously be living in, right? So anyway, these were fun episodes to revisit. I haven't watched them in a while, so they felt kind of brand new. One of my favorite lines, one of my favorite lines in the Future's End episode is when Rain Robinson realizes that Tuvok has downloaded her hard drive, her database. She runs outside and she yells at them like, my computer is messed up. She's like, who are you guys? And what is that thing in your pants? And Tuvok, in his calm, logical Vulcan voice, I beg your pardon. Like, anyway, it makes me giggle every time. But she was talking about the phaser, I think, or the tricorder, probably the tricorder in his pocket, not the "Are you happy to see me" part of himself. Anywho, so yeah, so lots going on in these two episodes, between Starling stealing a temporal ship, a time travel ship. And then in Relativity, we see Captain Braxton again, but it's the version of Captain Braxton that was stranded in late 20th century LA. So anyway, temporal prime directive, time travel at its finest. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this. If there is a topic, episode, species of Star Trek that you would love for me to dive down the rabbit hole of and relate it to astrology, personal development, emotional intelligence, all of the things, or just my thoughts on the universe in general. Do I think time travel is a thing? Well, yeah. Even if it's not a for real, I can jump in a time machine and I can go there. I actually have traveled through my own timeline of life via hypnosis. So yes, and you can see things from a different perspective. But that was with a trained hypnotist with, I believe it's NLP, neuro-linguistic psych something. I can't remember, but it's NLP, neuro-linguistic something or other, hypnotherapy. So I did move through my timeline, and found it very healing and very therapeutic. I do recommend it if there's parts about yourself that you perhaps want to understand or that might support your healing process. It certainly supported mine to zoom out of my timeline and then go in at different parts, under trained hypnosis. So, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Anyway, so that's what I got for these two episodes. This was season 3, episode 8 and 9, Future's End, and then season 5, episode 23, Relativity, both Star Trek Voyager. So thanks for tuning in to Admiral Sara's Chronicles. Again, please drop me a comment. I appreciate all your comments, and I will talk to you on the next video.